Cool.
Is that better?
Show me again. Ah,
I like
yeah, I like it like that.
it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Well, we're live. I'm just waiting for people to join the chat.
that's okay. So my question to you is, so you've been working at this for 10
Uh
years,
huh.
and I said in my email last night, about the business and stuff like that. And I know the Australian music business pretty well because
Yeah.
I've done stuff for Australian bands for 30 years. Um, the labels are there. Most of it, like my friends that work at Universal and Sony and stuff like, do they have labels in Melbourne as well? Do they have offices there?
Most of the offices are in Sydney, but the artists that I work with are all over Australia. So when I'm dealing with labels, yeah, potentially the offices are in Sydney, even though I'm in Melbourne. But yeah, hey Kenzie, hey Lucia, thanks so much for joining the stream. Yeah, so it is. There's not that many labels that are based in Melbourne, although they'll often have people. They might have a few people here and
But
there, but the majority of the business is still in Sydney. Yeah.
and I've been through the years. Everybody's always tells me, Melbourne is the music capital for live bands,
Yeah.
live performance.
Yep.
My experience, I've seen a band or two there because I've been going to Australia since 1988.
Yes.
It's my home away from it's my home away from home.
Yeah.
I'm even considering moving there at this point. There's like all these crazy things going on. But my experience in music is all in Sydney,
Yeah.
especially back in the 90s. It was all about clubs and all night clubs and lots of drugs. And
Yep.
we'd party for days at a time and, New Year's Eve and things like that. But I never like experienced that in Melbourne.
Yeah. So I guess it's hard. What happened a few years ago, when you're probably aware, is the lockdown laws in Sydney. So a lot of that
Yeah.
really vibrant nightlife that you would have been aware of just completely disappeared. And it kind of
Yeah.
sprung up in Melbourne. It's always been there in Melbourne, but I think it really took over in the last couple of years for being that live music kind of hub. There's
Yeah.
really great venues here, and then you can actually go out afterwards. So it's kind of taken over, that mantle from Sydney. That I think you're right. Sydney did have that, especially during the 80s and
I was
90s.
Yeah, I was so happy that they had the lockdown laws. I think I was the only one because I'm too old to go out anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, oh, great. Sorry, I didn't have to. People like, oh, I was like, I miss those good old days, the ones I remember, but can't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. I'm in bed by 9.
That's
It's like, forget it.
hilarious.
I'm not going to go out late.
I love that.
I haven't seen a live band play in freaking forever.
That
Oh wait, I saw Rob Thomas in Sydney in November.
low bass guys just entered the chat. He said he came here for the drugs. So there you go. Um,
Hey,
Hannah's here and Grace
Sorry.
is here.
wait. Rule number 1 with drugs, if you don't know this, sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. There you go. Uh, so for those who don't know, we've this legend of photography that's joined us today, Chris Cuffaro. Thank you so much. It's really lovely to have you on the chat, live from LA. We've got Brainbeat Gaming is here, Deshawn is here, Ash is here, Low Bass, Hannah, Mecca McKenzie, Grace. So lovely to have all of our regulars here for the chat, which is so lovely. Yeah, it's really great to talk to you, Chris. It's so interesting. I guess mutual friend of ours introduced us, Emerald, someone that I know
Yep.
very well. And I knew of your name, but when I looked up your work, I absolutely knew of your work. Like it's so familiar to me, mainly for 2 particular photo shoots. The photo shoot of Michael Hutchins that you did is one of my all-time favorite photo shoots, I think, of any photographer. So it was great to put that connection together, that was actually one of yours. And a lot of the work that you did with George Michael, I was really, really familiar with as well. So it was pretty blown away to see that was your particular work. To be honest, it's quite an honor to have
Well,
you here chatting.
Well, first of all, no honors and none of that crap. I don't take that shit seriously. I told you.
I know,
So
but I
basically
can
how
still say it, so shush.
I know. The way I tell people is, up until 10 years ago, I was just working. I move forward. I don't look back. And then 10 years ago, I started this Greatest Hits project, which made me look back. So doing that, it realized how much I've done. Even to this day, just last week, it's like I forgot about I did this, and I always forget what I've done. So, but when I started my project, when we were pitching things to galleries and people, the thing I'd always say to everybody, which is the fact, everybody knows at least one of my photos. Everybody has seen at least one. And so, but they don't know it's me. And so it always makes me laugh that people don't, they'll be like, what happened, example. So in 2018, I had Greatest Hits George Michael exhibition in Sydney at Black Eye Gallery. So everybody's all like, oh, you're the guy that does George Michael. You do face, you did this, you did that. So a year later, I go back and I do Greatest Hits Grunge. And they're like, oh, you're the guy that does Nirvana. Wait a minute, you did George Michael, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Chris Cornell.
Yes.
And then last November, I do Greatest Hits Michael Hutchins. And then like, oh my God, you did my, and I always tell people I could do a different exhibition every month for the next 10 years and not repeat myself. That's how much I have.
Yeah, it's.
So you haven't seen anything. People don't realize. So I'm a workaholic. Always have been.
Yeah, it's really been lovely over the last couple of days to actually go through your collection and have a look at some of the stuff you've done. And you're right, you have done it all. And Kenzie's just said, yes, I've seen so many of these photos. I'm just showing some of your collections now. I just wanted to say what up to Josh that I've just seen join the chat. Nice to see you here. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, because it's, I guess, how I got my start working in music photography, was kind of inserting myself almost into a genre, which was hip-hop in Australian music, and that was how I got known. And I think you were kind of there at the right place at the right time at the grunge kind of scene. And no, you're shaking your head.
No. Okay, so I'll tell you a short version of a long story.
Do it.
Okay, I won't bore you with all the crazy. I don't want to make people fall asleep here. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s. Okay, right then and there, next to photography, music was my passion. And being in the Bay Area in the 60s, you had Bill Graham promoting shows. I have an older brother who's 10 years older than me, who went to Monterey Pop, who went to Altamont to see the Stones and the Hells Angels thing happen. So we had music. Music was everywhere. So when I started photography, I wanted to shoot girls. Everything I did is about girls. I started looking at Playboy when I was 5, and I knew that's what I wanted to do, whatever it was. I didn't know what it was, but I wanted to do that. But I started shooting concerts when I was 16 years old for fun, because I could sell some prints in school, and I got to see all my favorite bands.
Yep.
But when I got in, I moved to LA at 20, wanting to do girls and fashion and stuff, and found out the first day I was here, my boss told me, you're never going to work in this town, because he goes, you know nothing about fashion, and this is not the place to be to do fashion. Los Angeles, you got to go to New York. So I fell into the music thing a couple years later. I started meeting my heroes and shooting my heroes. I'm proud of the fact that I'm not known for one genre. There's photographers, the grunge photographers like Charles Peterson. He's a legend and he's brilliant.
Yep.
There's the hip hop guys like Michael Levine in New York. There's a lot. I covered it all, and that's the thing I'm most proud of. Like that's what I was saying to you the other day. Is like, I'm a photographer. I'm not. That's it, and I'm barely that on a good day. Yeah. So to me, it's like I just covered all the genres, and I didn't fall into anything. I just hustled and I went after it. So that's how I worked it.
Yeah, totally.
That's
a short version of it, yes. I guess what I meant, though, is like you were there for that, whether it was, I guess, you meant to be or not, you were there for that kind of explosion, and you documented a lot of that stuff at the start for that, even though now you are completely, you are prolific and you have done everything. I guess you were there to catch the start of that wave, which was, one of the most important kind of explosions that we've had in music, and that you were able to document at that point.
Well, I'll tell you a fun story about that, because I just told this story on Saturday. My newest catalog is coming out this week, which is all on Jane's Addiction, my favorite band, and I documented Jane's Addiction for 2 years.
Yeah, I saw that. I had that as one of the questions. We just videotaped a bunch of stories that we're going to be putting out, like with all my stories. And I was telling the story before 1989. I was into like bands like Genesis or, rock and roll. But I was into funk. I grew up on funk music and R&B. I grew up on disco. I always tell people, I grew up on all the hip hop artists I've ever shot. Ice-T the OG because I'm of what I've done, of what I've seen. I always tell people. But what happened was,
I saw Jane's Addiction for the first time in '89, and it scared the shit out of me, but like woke me up to this genre of alternative music. And like I didn't know, and there I am in LA, and they're the biggest thing in LA, and Nothing Shocking was just out, and so that opened that door to that world, which then opened the door to, ooh, what's this Seattle Sub Pop record, and what do they have? And Single Club, and ooh, what's this band Nirvana? They got a album called Bleach, and so that opened the door to that. Then I started going down that path, and then doing Jane's Addiction for 2 years. I always tell people from 1990 to 90 into 92 was the best 2 years of my life because of the shows, the bands, the shoots, everything I was doing was insane. I look at that calendar and I just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Jane's Addiction, Nirvana, and you're just like, oh my god, and it's crazy.
And did you actually tour with bands, or would you catch them when they came into town and do a couple of shows with them? Were you ever on the road with anybody?
Jane's Addiction was my number one. I would spend all my money that I would make following them around because they gave me access that nobody had. They trusted me, and they like, whatever you want to do, Chris, do it. And I don't think they do it for you now, but back in those days, they would let photographers shoot the first 3 songs and then kick you out.
They still do that.
3 songs, you're gone.
Unless you're the tour photographer, it's the same, yes.
Right, exactly. So I would have, I never had that happen to me once because I knew everybody.
Yeah.
But what I did was, I'm not a big fan of shooting live shows. I mean, I liked it. It was fun. What I did was good. But I seeked out a session with somebody, private, no matter where it was. I wanted to be one-on-one. I wanted to capture, get to know them, make something that's unique. And that was always my thing. That's how I kind of worked with that. Just recently, because what do you use? I'm assuming you use a Canon 5D.
No.
No?
I'm Nikon, you call it there. I use Nikon D4.
Okay, good. All right. Very good. I'm a Nikon guy since I was a kid.
Yes.
Okay, so, no, here's the thing. So last year, I think, some point last year, I met, Rob Thomas has his own photographer that follows him around. This guy, Hurley. He's amazing. Like, this guy's brilliant. And he's like 25, 26 years old. Shoots. You go look at Rob Thomas's Instagram and live stuff. You'll see amazing shit. Hurley is just genius. But I said to him, God, I wish I had your gear in 1989 or 1991 because I had to shoot film and I had to have manual focus and and it was expensive.
Yes.
And then you're in the middle of a pit. Try to be in the middle of a pit during a Bad Religion show.
Yeah.
It's like suicide.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you guys have it easy now. Like really, no idea how easy you have it. The last show I shot, I think it was 2002 with digital, scared the shit out of me. I was like, oh my God, I wish I had digital in 1991. but the thing about it is like, for me anyways, it's like seeing what Hurley's doing. Him and I have talked about it. I would like to see you try shooting film and with a manual focus camera. Let me see what you get.
Yeah,
and he
totally.
just won't do it. Like,
yeah, it's.
I dare you to do it.
I've done it a couple of times, but only for like a few frames. It's like just to snap off while I'm doing. Oh, Anna, thank you so much for gifting that subscription to Kenzie. That's very sweet of you. Thank you so much. That's really lovely. Yes, I was just saying it's only ever been a couple of frames. It would be incredibly difficult, as you know, and also the amount of content that we just have to get out now is so, it's more than the amount of frames that you're allowed, all those things. So it's very different now.
Right,
so.
like I would shoot a show back in the day, a Jane's Addiction show. We'd shoot 30 rolls of film. That's 36 frames.
Yes.
That's like $2,000.
Yeah, that's so expensive. Yeah.
And people, I just feel like people are like, oh my God. I said, yeah, like you can, shoot that much on one digital card, and you're good. So,
yeah, totally. The one thing that I really noticed about your work, which is something that I try to do with my portraits as well, but your work is quite simple and quite timeless. They're the two things that I think sets you apart from other photographers. That's that really timeless. It could have been shot at any time. You don't know, and I love that. And I was reading up about some of your early influences, and would you say that that's those influences lended itself to that type of work? Because that's what I get from your work. It's like, it's so, it really is,
Okay.
it's quite timeless to me. It could have been.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It's the nicest thing I've heard today. So basically, I grew up at the age of 10. The reason I'm a photographer is the movie Funny Face. You ever see the movie Funny Face with Audrey Hepburn?
Ah, yes, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Okay. Fred Astaire plays a photographer named Richard Avery, and he falls in love and they live happily ever after. Beautiful musical, great movie. Recommend it to everybody. But out of that movie, when I'm 9 years old, I learn about Richard Avedon. And Richard Avedon, from day one, I used to call him my grandfather or my uncle, or I would say, like, he's my dad. And I just, like, as a kid, I just thought he was the best. There was him, Irving Penn is my other one, and David Bailey from the UK. Those three, if you look at those three guys' work, and then look at my work, you're going to go, oh, Chris is an asshole. He ripped those guys off. And I'll be like, yup. But if you're going to steal from the best.
Steal from the best. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's where I learned, keep it simple, pull something out of a person. What I always say, what I look at, I would say, I want to pull honesty out of somebody. I want to get the real person.
Yep.
Whether I have 5 minutes or 5 hours, doesn't matter. I'm going to get the real person. But keep it simple. The simplest things last the longest. I say this to artists and musicians. Everybody can hum a Beatles tune. Everybody knows a Beatles tune because it's simple.
Yeah.
But nobody can hum a Frank Zappa tune if they try. It's impossible.
Yes.
So keeping things simple, they become timeless.
Yeah.
And you could sit there. I look at pictures sometimes I shot and I go, oh, that's 1994. And then I'll go, like, what was that, like a year ago, 10 years ago? And
yes.
I'm the math, and I'm like, holy shit, where did it go? You know.
I love what you said about trying to get something out of your subjects, and that's something that I really try and do as well. It's and you can see it in your photographs that you have that trust. Do you have any tricks of like establishing that trust?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, because you can see it in your photographs. I love it.
Well, when I do artist talks and I do lectures and I mentor all my assistants and people, I say, I always tell, if you came to my shoot and just walked in the door, I always tell people, don't judge me on my photo shoot personality, because that's not who I am. That's just me doing my job and getting people to have fun and relax.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time, my tricks are basically this. First rule is when a client, because when people, especially my early career, people would walk in the studio and go, ooh, I hate having my picture taken.
Yes.
And I would say to them, nobody hates it more than me, because there are no pictures of me. I didn't start getting in front of the camera up until 10 years ago. If you took a picture of me, I'd break your camera.
Oh my God,
so
that's so funny.
Yeah, my parents couldn't prove I exist because they had no photos of me. So I hated it. So I understood that. I had empathized with that feeling.
Yeah.
So I knew, let's make it fun and easy. So the second thing I would do is say, all right, I distract them. Let's not talk about the photo shoot and what we're doing, because that freaks a lot of people out.
Yep.
When you're shooting an artist that's used to doing it, that's one thing. But the average artist hasn't done a lot of photo shoots.
Yeah.
So what I do, one of my favorite things to do, I literally have done this for 40 years, is I ask the person what their first concert was.
Ah, cool.
What's your first concert?
Yeah.
And then you get that first concert story. That's why I have lots of videos of that on my websites, and it's part of my Greatest Hits campaign. But people you distract them to have them think about something else that they're not doing. We're doing a photo shoot, but we're going to talk about get their mind elsewhere.
Totally.
Then they can relax, because then they're talking about, oh, dude, I saw the Beatles, and I'm like, oh, dude, the Beatles, what was your favorite song? And then, hey, stay here while you're doing that, and then they talk, and so you start that rapport, and you start the conversation, and then you just try and totally what I have dumb things I've said for years. If my assistant was here right now, he sits there and just rolls his eyes every time for every fucking story 1,000 times. But what I do is I just get people to think about something else than the photo shoot itself. I mean, that also depends on the kind of job I'm doing.
Yes.
But, a fashion shoot, you're like, the model's got to think about what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I think what you do, and I'm sure you do it too, is it's communication with your artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you like? What do you don't like? And then if some artists these days are a little more bold and crazier than past artists, some artists want to try things. So I always go in with a shot list on a 3x5 card, and I always go in, here's what we're going to do. I get the easy ones out of the way. They get warmed up.
Yes.
And by the last one, okay, now we're going to cover you in blood and have you naked right in the studio. And they're like, okay, cool.
Yes,
So
yes. I love that.
you don't walk in the door and I throw blood on them.
Yeah.
Let's get going.
Don't start with the blood. We work up to the blood.
So to me, what you do is I'm going to back up a second here.
Yeah, cool.
Back up to the beginning of when I moved to LA. Day one in Los Angeles, I got the best advice ever that I live by to this day. And that advice was simple. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's not who you know, it's who you blow. So if you're going to fuck somebody, you better fuck the right person. And so I looked at my boss, and I'm 20 years old going, I don't know what you're talking about, but you're scaring the shit out of me. But then he turned to me and he says, because he goes, so when you guys start shooting, you got to do it with the right people, do things the right way. Don't fuck people over. We always talk about business, about how, wanting to be, I would say my most important piece of equipment I own is my reputation. That's it. Who cares about cameras you have?
Yeah.
It's my reputation. But second rule was, it's not what you shoot, it's who you shoot. So you can, now it's more like, for you guys, it's kind of the same, but back in the early 80s, you could have the greatest pictures of a bunch of nobodies or a bunch of so-so half-assed pictures of a bunch of somebody. Who's going to get the job? The somebody. They don't care. Nobody looks at my photography. They look at who I'm shooting.
Yeah.
To this day, I always say to everybody, I don't even need a portfolio. I just need to put a list of names.
Yeah.
George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston. I can go down the list, and I always say I can drop names like crazy.
Yeah.
But that's the way the world works these days. Like, they don't look at your pictures and go, oh, that's a beautiful picture. They go, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, I like him. They're not even – they kind of look past your lighting, your composition. So it's really tricky that way.
I think especially in entertainment, music, celebrity like that, that's 100% true. Yes, absolutely. Completely.
That's what I'm saying. It goes back to, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's who you know. Because my boss said, and I understood him, and to this day, it's like, when I say that, it's not like physically having sex with somebody, but it's like, if you're going to fuck somebody over, it better be worth it. If somebody's going to fuck you, there's got to be something, a reason. You got to have a reason to do it all.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of
I did read one of your interviews as well about being really nice to people, like actually being a nice person. That's so important, because people will tell other people if you're an asshole, they're going to be like, oh my God, that Chris guy, he's a complete asshole. And then people won't want to work with you.
Right. And then that's where you get somebody, please, can I pour some blood on you?
Yeah.
And thank you for letting me pour some blood on you.
Yes.
It's like, please, can you pass the drugs? And thank you for passing the drugs. We
Sharing
used to always
is caring.
joke about it. Exactly. I always do hashtag manners. I mean, I just wrote a post about Instagram. I tell people all the time, ask me to take my photos and post them elsewhere. Please ask me. Don't just take my photos.
Yes.
Ask.
Oh God.
And I'm training. My friends trained to me, and I'm trained to change the internet one user at a time. But manners are important. Please and thank you go a long way, and they don't cost a dime.
Yes. Well, as someone involved with an artist that has a very young and very keen fandom, and my photos are stolen left, right, and center, I am trying to educate one by one as well, and to say, just credit me, just ask me. That would be really lovely. It's
Well, I always tell them, I never say no. I just like being asked.
Yes.
Because I always say the story I put behind it always is, if you say you owned a bakery, and I just walked into your bakery, grabbed a bunch of donuts, took a coffee, and just walked out the door, you'd be like, dude. And then I said, oh, but wait a minute, I'm going to tell everybody where I took it, just so that you get some credit. It's like, you wouldn't do that, And so I tell people, just ask me, hey, Chris, can I post? I've got the George Michael fans. I've got trained pretty well, and they respect me.
That's great.
A lot of, but I'm, it's one person at a time.
Yes.
I just feel like it's just respectful. I just think I know it's the world we live in today. There's not a lot I can do about it.
Yeah, it has changed a lot with, I guess, the internet and the misunderstanding of how it works and how art works on the internet. And it's a education process, and we're all trying. Yeah. We could.
Yeah, and as I tell people, and you'll understand this, we're running a business.
Yes.
We have bills to pay.
Yeah.
We have to pay rent. I tell people, and I've been doing this for 50 years now, and I always tell people, I'm not in the photography business. I'm in the business of photography. Business is first.
Yes.
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah, totally.
Most of my peers are long gone because they couldn't run a business.
Yes. That kind of it leads me into the next question, but you would have been around for the transition of shooting obviously all on film and now these days shooting majority on digital. But because I know that a lot of photographers at that point, they couldn't make that transition. A lot of people kind of dropped off, and I'd love to hear your perspective on how you did that, because you've managed to keep going.
Well, I'm lucky, I'm smart, and I'm curious, and I like to know how everything works. Everything about me and my whole life is about curiosity. It feeds my passion, as I like to say. So when the first Apple computers were invented, it's like, ooh, how does that work? And let me get one and find out. And then how does that work? So I jumped into computers early on and was into Macs early on. And, back in the day when there was just HyperCard and it was System 6 or something like that. But then when the digital camera thing started taking off, I knew things were going to change. So I prepared myself for it. And eventually I've been shooting digital now. I got my Hasselblad 17 years ago, I think. I haven't shot film. I shot film once in that time. I don't even like film anymore.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. If you don't just step in occasionally and do that, because it's really in the last couple of years, it's actually there's a big film kind of resurgence.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You're like, I've done that.
All these young kids, hipsters and kids that I yell at all the time. They don't even make my favorite film. They don't even make anymore. So that's why I don't. My favorite film was Polaroid 665, which was a positive negative film. You peeled apart and had a negative and a positive.
Oh yeah.
So that film stopped being made. So I was like, fuck it, I don't need to shoot this shit anymore.
Yeah.
But I've been shooting digital. I have an old Hasselblad H1 with a Phase 1 P25 back that I paid $50,000 for, and now it's worth nothing. But my main camera the last 2 years, the main camera now is a Hasselblad X1D. It's my baby. I love it to death, and it loves me. But awesome. I like digital. I was able to make the transition because I was a computer person already, so I understood files and this and that, and then the cameras came along, and I was able to just adjust. And my old assistant, one of my main old assistants, started a digital capture company, so I started working with him. He helped me on my shoot in the beginning, and it was a smooth transition for me.
Oh, that's good.
Easy.
That's great to hear. The other thing that I've seen that you do is you direct videos, and I think the first video you ever directed was actually Jeremy for Pearl Jam. I read that story, that is a.
Didn't you know?
Yes, and then you said that they've put it up on kind of YouTube now. You can actually you can watch it now.
Yeah, you can find it.
But what do you prefer, directing or shooting still? Do you have a preference, or do you kind of stepping into one, wearing one hat and going back, wearing the other?
Well, so I started directing in '91. There's a lot of stuff I've done that I don't even tell people about or pushed, whatever, a lot of little dumb things and stuff. But I consider myself, as of today, if you ask me, am I a photographer or a director? I am a director.
Oh, cool.
My future is in directing.
Yep.
My photography career is over. I haven't done a paying job in 3 years. I haven't even looked for a job. Mm-hmm. Everything's been about my exhibition and my project. We're doing a documentary and all this crazy stuff.
Awesome.
But
perfect.
I consider myself a director now. I'm actually working on a TV series right now that we're working on. So that I hope to get on to HBO or something like that I'm producing and creating and stuff like that. I love directing. I love the process. I love working with people and of that whole actors and the whole thing like that. I really enjoy that. Oh. So I just do music videos for fun for my friends, to help my friends out.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And so the stuff that you're directing, what does that entail? What are the type of clients that you're getting for that work?
Well, the last couple of years, nothing really. I've been so busy with these going to Australia. I was in Australia.
Yes,
why? I was in Australia
How come
6 months last year.
Why do you keep invading us? What are you doing down here? What's your connection?
I love it.
Yeah, why? Tell us why you love it so much.
I love Bondi Beach a lot. It's been like home for me since, I think the first time I saw it was in 1988 when I was there. My first time to Australia was in '88 with George Michael and the Faithful.
Yes, I read that. That's pretty awesome tour to be on.
Yeah, it was. And it was the first time I ever did drugs.
Yeah.
Was on that tour.
Cool. Good memories.
Yep. Yeah. And I got photos to prove it. So I always tell people, who do you know that has pictures of the first time they ever did drugs? Me.
Hands up. That's funny.
So, and I was able to focus too.
Wow.
That's how good I am.
That's credit where credit's due there.
But I fell in love with Bondi because it reminds me of an area that I grew up in, a beach called Santa Cruz. I don't know if you've heard of Santa Cruz in Northern California.
Sure have.
So I fell in love with Bondi, and so the last 3 years, last year I was there 6 months, and I stay in Bondi, and then I go to, every once a month I'll go to Melbourne for a week. But I've always, I love Australia. I want to move there someday. I don't know when, but we'll see.
Awesome.
But I like the people. I like the food. It's a little too slow for me, but and I can be rather annoying to my friends there. But it's like Australia. I think of Australia as like literally my backyard. It's like,
yeah, you said your best friends here as well, so that's probably that.
A lot of them are. I mean, I have 20 best friends there.
Oh, cool.
On a good day.
Oh, that's good. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between America and Australia, but it is definitely a slower version.
Yes.
Way less people, way slower.
Yep. It always takes me like a week to get adjusted. And the way I phrase it, and my friends, if they were here right now, they would smack me so hard. The way I phrase it is I go, Australians wait for shit to happen. And then I like to make shit happen. I don't wait. So they always get mad at me. Like, I'm like, let's go do this, this, and this. They're like, well, let's just go to the beach and we'll talk about it. I'm like, no, go do this.
I saw that was like one of kind of your, I guess, mantras as such. It was kind of like, make shit happen. Like, don't wait, go, go, go. I also very much aspire to be like that and go out and get things. I love to inspire other people as well. And I do feel like in America, I don't know whether it's just because there's way more people, but Americans are way more get up and go and, strive for your goals and work.
Yep.
So
as I like to put it, I've said this literally since the first time there. If the national slogan for Australia is "No worries, mate," the national slogan for America is "Fuck off, asshole." Because we just,
so true.
And especially in Hollywood, in a Hollywood entertainment business, everybody comes to LA with a dream.
Yeah.
So the competition is crazy. You can't sit around and wait for the phone to ring.
Yes.
Like I always tell, the people I mentor, the things that I do. I would say, I just asked my friend last week for $5 million, and he just laughed at me and said no. And I said, I don't mind asking. I don't care about hearing no.
Yeah.
I've been rejected, and I've heard yes. But the lesson I learned when I was 19 years old was, and I live to it this day, is that every no brings you closer to a yes. Mm-hmm. So I just go around asking, will you do this photo shoot? Would you want this? How do you think I got Nirvana to shoot? It was like, I asked the manager, hey, what are they doing? They got some free time. Let me shoot Nirvana.
Yes,
okay, Chris, go ahead.
I love that story. And I try to tell people that all the time because they're always asking about how do you get started in the industry. And I did the same thing. I just went around asking lots of people if I could shoot them when I first started. And it kind of, I completely agree. If you don't ask, nothing will happen.
They say no, and you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I'll go on to the next person.
to the next person.
Move on.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we got from Ash, who I think is in the chat, but she was asking if you had ever lost your passion and how did you regain it. I did read somewhere that you have never lost your passion. How do you maintain that love for the visual art?
Because I speak the truth, I'll tell you the truth.
Cool.
It's a sad story, so get some tissues.
Okay, tissues, everyone. Let's do it.
So back in 1998, the love of my life left me.
Oh.
And broke my heart. And for a good year, I could give a fuck about anything. Mm-hmm. And basically was depressed, suicidal for a year. Mm-hmm. I could give a fuck about photography. I could give a fuck about anything and everything. All I wanted to do was die. And so immediately after that happened, the first week basically, my business manager, who was my mom for 25 years, who literally was not physically and not literally my mom, but she was my mom. Yeah. She took care of me for 25 years. she grabbed me and put me into therapy. And because I didn't care about photography, I was like, fuck that. If I can't have the love and this, then nothing else matters. I don't want anything. And so it took me a good year of hard work twice a week and of life and getting through life. And then it took me another 5 years after that to get rebuild. And I did the techniques that I did was, I think 3 years after that happened, I wanted to get the passion back. And so what I did was I took one of my old portfolios that was like, this big, had 50 pages. I put 50 blank pages in it. And I said, you have 1 year to fill this book up with new photos. Come up with a project that can start from scratch. And so what I did, I ended up doing this series called My Apartment. And what it was me inviting girlfriends over, get naked, get drunk, and shoot a bunch of pictures with a point-and-shoot camera. It was all point-and-shoot. And I made this portfolio. And basically it was like me to exercise the demons, have some fun, have a few drinks, take some pictures of a naked girl. Because I've been shooting pictures of naked girls since I was 17 years old. I've been shooting girls since I was 12. So I tell people, like, I just had to do something that was different. And I filled that book up in a year, and that kind of ignited things to get going again. And that's what's the next step.
Awesome.
But I remember that first year I tell people all the time, when I'm dead and gone and they go read those journals, you're going to start crazy shit. And I was
heartbroken.
Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't her that did it. She was the fuse that lit the bomb, which was my life, my upbringing. It just triggered everything. I divorced my family pretty much when I was 25 years old. Still to this day, I haven't seen my brothers and sisters or talked to anybody.
Yeah. Right.
So it was this whole process. Like I jokingly tell people all the time that since I was 10 years old, I'm married to my photography. I'm married to my art. And my wife is a real bitch sometimes, and sometimes she kicks me out. But she always tells me to come back. And sometimes I go cheat on her, and then she tells me to come back. So my wife is real tough sometimes, and she can be brutal
what a woman.
Sometimes too. Yes. So, and she takes all my money.
Oh, yes, that's good on her. I love that you said you had a project, though, because I'm really big, and I try to pass this knowledge on as well about doing big projects and, setting yourself goals for, particular periods of time. Like you said, a year, which is great.
Can you see those boxes back there?
Yes.
All those little boxes? Okay. So back in the day when film and I was crazy, I would do every year I gave myself an assignment to do things. I know that House and Garden's not going to call you up to go shoot a thing on flowers, but I would go, well, they're not going to do it, so I'm going to give it to myself. This year, shooting flowers. So those are all these projects.
Oh my God.
And I'd shoot a project. I shot like 1 year I did hockey players. 1 year I did porn stars. 1 year I did artsy fartsy nudes. 1 year I did flowers. 1 year I did cactuses. And I would do these projects, but they weren't complete until you printed them, a selection of 25 or 50, and then you put them in the box, label the box, put them on the shelf. And I have not looked at those boxes in 30 years, most of them.
I love that so much, though. Like, I do the same thing. I usually set myself a goal for a year that's a style of photography or a skill that I don't know. So it's like, okay, This year I'm doing, 1 year it was studio photography. 1 year was like learning how to do long exposures, and like just dedicated myself to that.
Yep. That's key.
Yes.
And I tell my assistants and my kids that I mentor, I tell them, shooting other things helps you when you go out and shoot musicians. You don't realize when you're learning to do things that it adds to everything else you're doing.
Absolutely.
And especially in Hollywood and celebrity world, it's really different where, you might go like, this is how I shoot, and you might get 5 minutes. You get 5 minutes with Dustin Hoffman.
Yes.
You better have your shit together.
Yes.
You can't lollygag around and play games.
Yes.
So if you get 5, but learning how to do things helps me doing other things and shooting this and shooting that. So that's why I tell people, like, you have to develop all these. So I give assignments to my assistants all the time. It's like, go do me a favor, go shoot Venice Beach for me for a day and show me what you get. You know, I do that all the time with people because I like to see them use that part, a different part of their brain, and learn. And so that's how I would tell people when I started directing. People are like, photographers suck as directors. They know nothing about film. But I was like, I've been watching movies my whole life. Then previous 5 years, I was working on video sets as a still photographer with the best directors in LA. I was working with David Fincher and Michael Bay and James Cameron and Tony Scott. The list goes on. I was like, I just learned by talking to those guys.
Yes.
That's my film.
Totally.
But I was doing other things that apply to everything that I'm doing. So I tell people all the time, I know too much about too much.
That's great. I love that. You know, you said sending your assistants to do stuff as well. In this little community here, I set a challenge for everybody on Sunday, and then I show all of the submissions that come through on the following stream on Sunday. So there's a different style of photography that we do every week, and it's keeping people really inspired during this weird time. Which I wanted to ask.
I want to see.
Yes. Cool.
I want to see what these kids are doing.
That's very inspiring stuff. Can I tell you?
Yeah, like I tell people, one of my favorite assignments to give friends I always tell everybody, like, is to make them feel really uncomfortable, is to do self nudes.
Self nudes. That would make a lot
like
of
a
people.
selfie that people just go, what? And it's always like, I don't want to see anything. And I go, you got to get artsy fartsy about it. So everybody, it takes people, you really got to think about it.
Totally.
You really gotta think about it.
Maybe I wonder what the chat will think about that being one of our assignments in the coming weeks. I did want to ask you if anything has changed for you in this very strange time that we're living in at the moment with COVID happening, and are you still able to do your work? I know you're obviously working on all these docos and stuff like that. Has anything changed, or are you kind of just? All
I've changed is it's July. I've done 4 shoots this year with my friends, basically, and normally by now I would have done 20 something. So it's just I haven't done as much.
Yeah.
I'm busy. I'm very busy every day. I have a plan for every day. I'm an anal retentive organization workaholic. So I always tell people, you know, I teach classes on organization. I teach classes on how to organize and I've done it for years. I used to go do the art center and teach kids how to organize. And I can tell you what I did 20 years ago today. I can tell you shoot dates. I can tell you who worked on those shoots, who did the makeup on that shoot. I can tell you,
wow.
You know, I look at a photo. I know I have information. You should see how my negatives are filed. Everything's color coded and alpha. It's just crazy. I've been that way my whole life.
That's pretty amazing.
I need to do. So I always tell people, like, that's why it makes me laugh. Like, I'll look and go, oh, so when was that concert with George Michael in Hawaii? I go, oh, that was April 6th. I go, April 6th, 1980 was the first day I did drugs. And it's like, oh, how do you know exact date? I go, yeah, here's the
dates. Oh my God, that's so funny. Well, because you do have the pictures to prove it, so it's amazing. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, another question that came from Ash actually was, have you ever outsourced any of your tasks, like your editing, or do you like to keep all of that stuff to yourself?
The only I would say outsource is my video editing. I have an editor who's a god, and I've known him for over almost 12, 13 years now, and he does all my editing, and I trust him 1,000%. I just tell him, make me look good, and I never really change anything that he does. I always tell him, if I get any complaints, I go, you're going to hear them, not me, and I always tell him. So he's the only guy. I do my own digital work, post-production work, most of it, and I have my living room's a digital lab. I have massive printers and things like that, and so I like to be in control of everything.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel very much the same way. It's hard to let go of that sometimes. Bit of a control freak. So.
Yeah, but it's like I'm also, what I've learned anyways is that I tell people all the time, when I was younger, we used to always talk about this, that life is the balance of art and commerce. You have to balance out your career with art, meaning I'm going to go shoot shit that makes me feel good and feeds my soul. And then I got to go shoot Fox Television because I got to pay the bills. So you have to balance that out, right?
Yes.
So what I tell people is, too much of one is bad. Too much commerce, and you go, your soul just gets sucked away. Too much art, you go broke. You're homeless. So that's when I was younger. Now my balance is simple. It's the balance of I give a fuck and I don't give a fuck. And I don't give a fuck more now than ever. When I was younger, I wanted everybody to like me. I wanted everybody to like my photos. I wanted to work.
Yes.
Now I don't care.
Yes.
Like I always tell, I don't know, in my entire career, I don't care if anybody likes my photos or not. I shoot to make me happy.
Oh, that's an awesome way to be. That's awesome.
Yeah, when you're young, you're thinking, oh, did they like the photo? Oh, they don't like it. What did I do wrong? What's wrong? And you go crazy because you might show the same photo to 10 different people, and 5 say it sucks, and 5 say it's good, and you're like, what am I doing?
Yes.
So I got to the point where I don't give a fuck, and only one person's opinion matters to me. My big brother, basically, he's been my brother for 40 years now. His opinion's the only one that matters to me. He's the only one I'll listen to.
Cool.
When he says it sucks, I'll be like, oh, what the fuck? And if he goes, your work is great, Chris, don't worry about it.
Oh,
so
cool. I love that.
But I don't, because he knows more about art and photography than anybody I've ever met. So his opinion matters. And he knew Rich Avedon, so that's
awesome.
Even more.
This kind of leads into a little bit of a question that I had about dealing with pain in the ass clients. Maybe you don't care as much now, but do you have any advice to deal with just people that are just super difficult? Stupid. Don't have taste. That could be another thing as well.
Don't know good from bad. Don't know a good photo from a bad photo. Don't know shit. Oh, I have an Instagram account. I'm a photographer. Like, yeah, fuck off. So basically, the rule is, if they're writing the check and signing the check, whatever you want. I used to get really upset. The analogy I like to use is that if a client calls me up and says, hey, Chris, can you shoot a picture of a teddy bear on a pink seamless? And I'd be like, yeah, I can do that. And can you send your portfolio? And if I send a portfolio over that had a teddy bear on blue, yellow, and red, they look at it and go, you can't do the job. I don't see pink. And you're like, there's every other fucking color. What do you think I can't do? And so you'd have to talk your way in. Then they would give you shit the whole time. That's not the right color. And I just go I always tell people, that's why I like working for people who know what they want.
Yes.
And in all these years, I always tell people, this is bad to say, but nobody's listening. There's only 10% of the people I worked for that I respect. The other 90% were all a bunch of idiots. Really.
Well, all of the people that are listening will just think that they're in the 10%, so it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. But there's like these people that you just go, nowadays now I laugh because most people go, dude, I was in high school when when you took that picture. I'm like, oh, go fuck yourself. I'm old and you're a kid, so shut up. But they nowadays it's different because everybody has more experience in photography because everybody is a photographer.
Yes.
Everybody's a photographer.
Yeah,
everybody. And as I like to say to people all the time, I used to be special. I'm not special anymore.
Yeah.
I have friends literally say to me with their iPhones in their hands, I can do your job, Chris. And I'm like, can't argue with you.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God.
And I'm like, go for it.
Yeah.
But like I tell people, then I say, anybody can take a great picture.
Yeah.
Anybody can. I've seen some amazing shit from some of the dumbest people. But I go, but try doing it for 50 years.
Yeah, consistently.
Put up with the assholes that I put up with, and put up with the fucking idiots that I put up with, and do it and create iconic photos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can come.
There's so much more to it than the click of the button. The business side of it is a whole different beast. So absolutely agree with you there. There was
taking pictures is the easiest part of all.
Yeah, it is. I completely agree with you. I often talk about this being the easiest part.
What I tell people is, and maybe you can relate to this, my saying my whole career is, I've never once been paid to take pictures. Not once check been for paint. I do that for free. The money is for all the shit I have to do before and all the shit I have to do after. Meaning I might have to, in the old days, go to the lab, pick up the lab, do the proof sheets, might be picking up equipment, drop it, whatever, pre-production, post-production. But taking pictures part, in my mind, I'm doing that for free.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the love comes in too, so it doesn't feel like work, that part.
I had somebody say to me on Instagram a couple weeks ago, when they saw some photo, they said, you have the best job ever. And I went, I wrote back, I go, it's never been a job, it's my life.
Yeah.
And then my follow-up is, as I always say to people, is if it was a job, I would have made money, but it's my life, and I didn't make any.
There's a quite interesting question in the chat, which was about, have you ever been tempted to do painting instead of taking photos? Was there any other interest in any other creative form?
Just directing.
Yeah.
You know, I like shooting. Shooting for me is like breathing, or as I like to say, it's Prozac for me.
Yeah.
When I get anxiety or stress, I need just give me something to shoot, and I feel better already. You know, and like.
Yes, I feel exactly the same way.
You know what I mean? It's like it's that balance, and like I tell people these days, the last 15 years, the crazy shit that I've done the best work of my life in the last 15 years. And so for me, it's like, you know, I always tell people when I was younger, a couple lessons I learned when I was 13 and 14 years old, I met this photographer and he said to me, you're nobody. You're not even a good photographer. You're not even a photographer until you've created art images that will last the test of time. Until then, whatever. And I remember that and stuck with me all these years, and now I've done that. So it's like, great. And when I was younger, I wanted to be Richard Avedon. I wanted to be that. I wanted to do what he was doing. He was shooting Audrey Hepburn, for God's sake.
Yes.
I wanted to do that. Now, I want to be better than him. And I want to be better than everybody. And so it shifts as you get it going. But my biggest fear was when I was younger, have you ever heard of a photographer named Francesco Scavulo?
I have not.
You can look him up. He was this Italian. He shot all the Cosmopolitan covers back in the 70s.
Cool.
Like, he did the same setup. Can you imagine doing this? The same lighting setup, the same setup for every picture. The only thing that changed was the color of the background and the model.
Yeah.
But and the same setup, though. Like, this over and over, year after year. And I always just tell myself, if I ever get in that situation where I'm doing the same thing over and over again, you can kill me.
Yeah, that's...
I won't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm always pushing myself to try new things, new cameras, new lenses, new techniques, new this. Always growing, always growing, always growing. I refuse to do the same thing. I just tell people all the
time. I love that.
So you have to push yourself, because nobody else will.
Yes.
It's up to you.
The other thing that I saw that you said in an interview is that you actually have it on your website, is your hit list of people you still want to photograph. So I guess that really ties into, you've still got these goals and you've still got these people that you aspire to shoot. What are your kind of top couple of people that you'd really love to work with?
Well, I've been saying for the last couple of years, I'm going to get to her. I said I would like to get Lady Gaga, myself, a few bottles of champagne and an 8-ball of Coke, and lock myself in a hotel room with her and shoot for a couple days and just have some fucking fun. Like, I'm not a fan of her music. I mean, I've heard it, whatever. But I know that her and I would really get along, and I know that we would do something really amazing if she just listened to me.
Yes.
But there's a lot of new artists that I when I was in Australia in November and December, I did something like 12 or 14 shoots with new artists while I was there.
Oh, I love that.
I was shooting everybody. Yeah, I was shooting everybody for free. I was like, friends were calling for other musician friends. You know, I was telling every band, whoever. I was like, free shoots. And so I had so much fun shooting all these new artists. I love shooting new artists because they inspire me, and then they remind me that of just that young kind of passion, that optimism that they have. I don't have it as much as I used to. I'm very jaded, but being around them kind of reminds me, like, Chris, shut the fuck up and let's help everybody else. Like, that's my job. The last 10 years, I say to people all the time, my job is, I've lived my dream 100 times over. My job now is to help everybody else live their dream. That's my job.
Yes,
period.
I love that. We was talking before we went, just on Skype before we went live, about how many people that you mentor. It's something that I'm really passionate about as well. It's actually why I do this channel, is because I'm so passionate about mentoring. Do you want to talk a little bit about how important that is to, I guess, to now pass on all of that knowledge to the younger generation that are coming through?
Exactly. Well, I have mentors. I have two main people that I entrust with everything. My main one, he knows everything. He met me the day I moved to LA. But my manager, the manager of George Michael, who used to manage George Michael, he's been my mentor for 35 years. And, you know, I go to him for everything. He just 2 days ago was talking to him about getting advice. I believe in having teachers. I'm a teacher. That's what I've been doing. When I was in high school, when I was 16 years old, I used to teach the photography class because I knew more than the teacher.
Yeah.
So the teacher was like, Chris, you teach the class. So I taught photography class for 3 years, teaching the kids, students, my friends, how to take pictures. So I have always been a teacher. Everybody around me knows that. Most of my friends call me life coach because there's nothing I haven't dealt with or been through that I can't handle. My life, not only in my own life, but my friends' lives. I've been around crazy people forever. But you teach, and you should. I love the fact that you are. You teach, you help others.
Yeah.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah, it really
and
is.
it comes back.
Yeah.
And it comes back, right?
Yes, it's good for the soul. That's like, I completely agree with you. It's one of my favorite things to do, to be honest.
Yeah, I've gotten friends. One of my best friends, I got her to go back to college 3 years ago. She got one more semester and she graduates with an accounting degree, and she's already has a job.
So cool.
She's gonna make. And she's all like, I can't believe it. You got me to do this. I said, well, you needed push. You needed somebody to help you, to put you on the right track. And I did that. And so I feel like dad, like I'm proud, like, oh my God. I always tell her, you're going to be my accountant. Yay.
That's awesome.
So, but you know, one of my friends, one of my girls, she's 21, just graduated this last March or whatever in New York. She's been driving across country. She gets to LA tonight. She's a genius shooter. Like, she's amazing. And I've been mentoring her for almost 2 years now. She's 21 and she's so talented, and she's moving here with a bunch of friends, and already they're like, what, you know, they want to help me. They want to, you know, intern for me and all this stuff. I'm going to help her with her career because
awesome.
She's really good.
Yes.
And she works hard.
Yes. And working hard, we were also talking about that, is when you see that little spark in people that do want to work hard, because the industry is ruthless, and if you don't want to work, you're not going to make it. So when you see that spark in someone, it really does make you want to help them.
Right. Well, as I always say to people, my career, the day I moved to Los Angeles, I said to my boss, his name was Don. I worked at a black and white lab, the best black and white lab in LA.
Cool.
We worked with every top photographer in the country. We worked with Bruce Weber, Greg Gorman, Herb Ritts, Matthew Ralston. Everybody who was anybody came to our lab. And that's how I met everybody and got into the biz, right? And the first day I'm at this job, he says to me, so tell me about yourself, Chris. And I said to him, I work harder than everybody. Nobody outworks me. Nobody will ever outwork me. So if you tell me so-and-so's working 12 hours, I'll start working 13 and kick that motherfucker's ass. Nobody outworks me.
That is so funny that you said that. Sorry, I've got a great story after you.
But he laughed at me, and then I turned around and I showed him for 3 years. And to this day, I always tell you, if you tell me tomorrow that Annie Leibovitz is working 16 hours a day, I will start working 17 and kick that bitch's ass. Tell her to fuck off.
That's so funny.
Because I'm very competitive, and to begin with, because I played sports my whole life.
Same.
So I tell people all the time, you don't even get, my best friend, Julie, to this day, we've been besties for 30 plus years. She always says, don't fucking challenge Chris. Like, don't do that. You don't want to get there. And I tell people that's how, things in my life where I'm never going to do that. You know, this one time a friend of mine asked me to direct a movie for a Penthouse. And I said, what? I don't do that. I don't want to do that. Oh, you'd be amazed. I said, no. For a month, I said, no. He called me up every week. I said, no, I don't do that. And he called Julie up, and Julie called me up and saying, I heard he asked you to do a movie. I said, yeah, I won't do that. She goes, I don't think you could do it anyways. It's not your thing. I just don't see you doing this. I don't think you're good enough. And hung up the phone on me. And I was like, I called her back. Said, fuck you, and hung up the phone, called him and said, all right, motherfuckers, let's do this. And so we ended up doing it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I'm very similar, like sporting background, very competitive. And I had someone tell me once that the only reason that I was able to do this professionally was because of luck. And I said the same thing. I do not believe there is anybody that has worked as hard as me. I honestly believe that. I worked my fucking ass off. So I was very offended by that.
You should be. But what we like to say here is, like the old, the saying we like to say is, you don't know the people I fucked to get where I am today. All the wrong ones.
Thankfully for me, I've been married the whole time, so I didn't have to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah. But you had to fuck him, so...
occasionally, yeah.
Exactly. But no, I'm just saying, is that, like, we in LA, it makes me laugh with my friend moving here today. I told her, like, it reminds me of me getting here. I remember like it was yesterday that I was driving here, 1981, and I'm moving to LA, and I didn't know anybody, had $1,000 in my pocket, and I don't know what I was doing. But I just remember all these things that I was taught in the beginning that still stick with me to this day about dumb things, like they're dumb, but they're also kind of true, And so you've got to sit there and realize you got to work hard, because like I tell people all the time, anybody can take a fucking great picture.
Yeah.
But you got to outwork that fucker.
Yeah.
You got to deliver your pictures on time. You could maybe go the extra mile, give them a little something extra.
Yes.
You know what? If the artist you like the artist, you make them a print. You say, by the way, I wanted to thank you for letting me shoot you. I just made you this print.
Yes.
Do the extra mile.
Do the extra, yeah. Too.
Like I give more away than I sell.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm the worst businessman in the world.
I'm big on that.
You want to hear a funny story just happened? If you saw my Instagram, a couple weeks ago, I posted some Polaroids of No Doubt from like 91 or something like that. And this girl sends me a message going, "Can I have those?" And I wrote her back saying, "Sure, you can have them," just being a smart ass about it, thinking nothing of it. The next day, she sends me a DM going, "Okay, I don't live in LA, but I'm going to drive to LA. Can I pick those up?" I'm like, "What?" She goes, I go, "Where do you live?" She's like, 70 miles away. I said, "You're going to drive 70 miles to get a couple Polaroids?" She goes, "I love No Doubt and Gwen Stefani." I'm like, "Okay, go for it. Come on by."
Yeah.
And sure, I'm like, and my friends are like, "You're going to give away Polaroids?" I don't care. If it makes her day and I make her happy, more power to it.
I'm going to pop your Instagram in the chat so people can follow you as well. If they're not already following you, absolutely need to happen. We're going to wrap this up really...
I have the best...
Sorry, say that again?
I said I have the best Instagram, just nobody follows me.
Yeah, well, we need to change that, so we'll give you a couple of follows. Does anybody have any questions in the chat before we will let him go shortly? But I've got one more question for you, just about you. You've also got a podcast, which I find really interesting. You've said before you've done like 500 episodes or something. What is some crazy amount?
800.
800. Oh my God. What made you get into podcasting? I love that.
No, well, I was doing it before people knew what podcasting was, and I was doing other things, like I've told you before, and I always tell people I don't hide things. I do things under names, different names and things like that, so that I don't mess up what I'm doing or plus I like doing it. I like to create a character and then do things, But what I was going to say is I don't take podcasting serious anymore. I stopped about 5 years ago. Now I do episodes once in a while. The 10 episodes I did with my best friend Mia, we did those in Melb.
Yep.
We had fun just doing that stuff. I don't take that stuff serious anymore. My friends always say to me, you should, work on your YouTube, do this. I just don't have the time, and I just don't know. And there's so much people doing this, and you're doing it better than I could. So like, why would I even, I can barely do what I'm doing in a sense. So I let everybody else do it. I've been there, done it. I've done webisodes. I've done so much that you have no idea that it's like, to me, and I tell people all the time, it's like, I've done it. And that's why I'm working on directing, and my future is in hopefully a television series.
I love that. That's very, very exciting. Okay, well, if there's no other question, someone has just asked if you know a girl. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Luigi Guerri? Do you know who that person is? Don't know who that person is.
I don't know.
Me either.
Where would I know?
I don't know. Just said, yeah, don't know that person. Anyway, if there's no other questions for the chat, I'd like to thank you for your time. It was so lovely talking to you and getting your perspective of your 50-year career, which is quite phenomenal. And thank you for your advice. I love that you just say it how it is. Like, it's very refreshing and very honest, and I'm a big fan of that. So. It's great.
I know, but I also told you from the beginning, it's like I've never been the type of photographer who, well, I'm a photographer and I wear a bandana and I think I'm special and, you know, and all that kind of, I've never been that. I told you in my email.
Just killed me.
I told you in my email that like for 20 some odd years, I used to tell everyone, don't call me a photographer. I go, I'm a starving artist.
Yep.
My agents would be yell at me because I was like, photographers are losers. Like they're dorks. They're geeky people. They're insecure.
So many
and they'd be like, but you're worse. They're like, I go, starving artist. Chicks dig starving artists.
Do they?
Like,
that's your little
so
way in.
we just like, so I've always like, I just don't take it seriously. And just to wrap my part up, I was going to say here is that the one thing my number one rule my whole life, literally from day one to starting my career to today, and I just turned 60 in April. I can't believe it. I act like I'm 20. But here's the thing. I tell you, the number one rule I've always carried with me and will always carry with me is having fun. I've always had fun. If I'm not having fun, I ain't showing up. It's that simple.
I love that.
So find something you love.
Yep.
Have fun. Have fun, but you can be business and you can make money, but you can keep having fun. Have fun. I've had fun for 50 fucking years.
I think that's the most perfect way to end this. That's great advice, and thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thanks, chat, for showing up. We'll take it over to the Discord and we'll have a little chat about what you thought about this today. Really, really appreciate your time. No, they would have loved it, Chris. It's totally fine. Really, really loved it. Loved speaking to you.
Thanks.
Love looking at your work.
Anybody ever has any questions, just email me.
Email you, yes, totally. And hopefully next time you come to Melbourne, I can show you where all the good nightlife spots are so that you think that it's cool here.
It's past 9 o'clock. I ain't going.
Yeah, we're going at 7. And then we go. Make sure you're in bed by 9. We'll tuck you in, and you're good.
Well, I'm trying to get to Melbourne. I wanted to get to Melbourne October, November, and December, and do Greatest Hits Melbourne.
Oh yes! Oh my God, that needs to happen.
They won't let me in.
Oh well.
Let me in. I told Emerald.
Yes. Well, hopefully they'll let you in at some stage, and we'll get you here.
Yeah. We'll see.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks everyone in the chat. We'll talk to you really soon. We'll see everyone on Thursday. We've got an interview with Ollie Sansom. For those who know Ollie, it's going to be a great interview. We'll talk to you really soon. Okay. Bye.
Bye.